You know what time it is? It is it is Prot Warrior on Dragonflight Alpha because we finally were able to properly test the goddamn spec and the talents are fucking amazing, so juicy. Prepare yourselves because today we'll be looking at Prot Warrior and Dragonflight Alpha with all the new juicy talents, playstyles, defensives, damage that it deals, and so much more. Right here, right now on Marcelian Online. And right here, right now on Marcelian Online is what we're doing with these videos and coverage of Dragonflight Alpha. So if you like our content and you want to support us a little bit more and you want to see more of this into the future, make sure to check our Patreon page down below with the link in the description where you can go to our Patreon page that directly supports our content. With the graciousness and benevolence of the patrons, we have managed to raise the quality of our production and also be able to post daily videos on pretty much anything that's going on in WoW. And right now, Dragonflight Alpha is the bee's knees. Even though Season 4 started, the new toys that we'll have in Alpha are pretty cool. So if you'd like to see more of this and more videos in the future, like class guides, tier lists, podcasts, streams, and more, make sure to check the Patreon link below. If you want to support us and see this content on a regular basis, of course, we would be super thankful. Now, with that out of the way, let's actually take a look at Prot Warrior. And of course, this isn't the first Warrior video that we're doing, it's actually the last, meaning that we've already covered the general talents all in all. So today I'll just go a little bit slightly more concise over them and what actually affects Prot Warrior a little bit more and what you might be interested in as much. Obviously you have the battle stances and the berserker stances that are coming back, which are pretty good. You'll probably want battle stance, to be honest. And you have a lot of utilities and toys like Spell Reflect and goddamn Intervene and Second Wing and Berserker Shout and Leap and all of that. We're not gonna go over all of those. There's a lot of general warrior utility and CC and quality of life talents right here, plus also a couple from your core base spec. I mentioned Intervene. There's obviously Thunderclap there that you will want, and if we're going to go into Thunderclap, let's actually take these one by one. First of all, if you look on the left hand side, you'll probably see something more arms related, and you will see Thunderclap kind of towards the middle, from the middle to the left, whatever. You also see Rend. Now, you will want Rend. Why you will want Rend? Because it's fucking good, and because just below Thunderclap, you'll have a choice node that's not actually a choice at all, and you can get either Crackling Thunder, we've had that before, it was always boring, or Blood and Thunder. Spreading Rend everywhere. This is so much fucking fun, man. It is unbelievably fun. You do end up spreading red in the AoE, and obviously you'll probably go this more so in dungeons than in raids, and it's a lot of damage. It's a lot of bleed damage, which obviously is good, because, who doesn't want damage, but you will have a couple of talents in the actual protection side of the talent trees that we will go over in a second. A couple of other key notes that you will notice further down is Die by the Sword. If you thought this was a bug, this is not a bug. This is the most overpowered melee cooldown in the entire fucking game. On a 2-minute cooldown, you have 100% parry and 30% damage reduction for... how long is it? Is it 8 seconds? It's 8 seconds. 100% parry on a tank? Yo! Alright, we're not gonna outplay this a little bit too much because we don't really want to see it go away. That out of the way, we do have a couple of, general massacres also there. And if you keep going down, you'll see Spear of Bastion with, of course, Elysian Might. Obviously on a choice node with Piercing Verdict, but likely you'll probably just get Elysian Might 110% of the time. And we talked about the middle side of the tree having Thunderclap and Blood and Thunder. If you go down one more row, you have Dauntless Duelist in a position with one-hand weapon specialization. Now, Dauntless Duelist is what you think it is. It is the Nadia trait in her Soul Binds in Shadowlands, where you get 3% more damage against your first target that you encounter in combat. I think it still works the same, yes, for as long as that target is alive. So obviously this looks to be like the raid buff that you would want for single target, and 1.5% damage reduction that you take from that target, as opposed to the something that is kind of cool, but 10% leech. 10% leech is probably really fucking good in AoE, and it's on one point of not. 10% leech is a lot, man. It's a lot of leech, and you'll likely want this in high mythic plus keys. Obviously, you can take the damage, the single target damage from Dauntless Duelist, or leech, which is probably something that you will want in AoE more so than in raid, since your HP will scale, spike up and down a little bit more. And if you keep going down, you will see Avatar, which is, you know, kind of always been a spell that you've had, and you still have it, and you probably will always want to take it because just underneath is Unstoppable Force. Unstoppable Force hasn't been played since BFA, and it makes your Thunderclap slap like a motherfucker, which is pretty good, specifically since you're also taking Rend and Blood and Thunder. So the Clap Warrior is back, which yay, because they've also buffed Unstoppable Force, so that's good. And this kind of concludes the middle side of the tree, and what I wanted on the right hand side to talk about for a quick second, the more, let's say, Fury-oriented trees is a couple of them. First of all, you will have Furious Blows, which you'll probably always want to take, because it's just kind of like free damage. Underneath it, you have Seismic Reverberations, which is the legendary that we have right now, which is definitely a 1-point wonder. It does a little bit less damage than the legendary. It's 50% as opposed to 75% that's currently on Shadowlands Live, but it is essentially free damage, especially in AoE. I mean, it's only in AoE, it's 3 targets. And if you look slightly towards the middle, to the left, you do have War Machine, which kind of feels like it's never been a talent since it has always competed with Devastator, at least in this expansion, and has always had strong competition. But right now, it's once again kind of free. You do gain more rage from it, and that coupled with, if you keep scrolling down underneath, Seismic Reverberation, blah blah blah, 30 extra rage, Frothing Berserker is amazing for a tank, especially for a warrior, where you have chance to refund rage, and especially considering that protection as a spec generally at the beginning of an expansion has rage problems. Now this, coupled with War Machine and coupled with a couple of bleeds that will work towards in the general talent tree of the protection, you will have a lot of rage income, which is really fucking good, since you're also playing Clap Paladin and you'll spam Thunderclap a lot more, and that generates rage for protection, which is pretty good. Now, if we go into the protection tree, you might see it similarly resembling Fury and Arms. It kind of feels like it has the same overarching design, kind of, but there's a lot more meat packed into the middle of it than as opposed to the bottom capstones. First of all, at the top, you'll probably get your usual suspects, your Demo Shout, your Devastate, your Last Stand. Now, if we're going to talk about the general warrior stuff, which is kind of packed into the middle, you'll have underneath Devastate, you'll have Strategist, which makes your normal core abilities have a chance to reset. Shield Slam, which is kind of important. It's, you know, it's something that you'll have to pick. There's no way around it. And if you look on the left-hand side, you have Devastator that now doesn't really have a strong competition. So once again, you will take all of it. This is something that I'm a little bit on the fence about, because Devastate on its own feels like a bland ability for a spec like protection that has so many things that it needs to do and can do on a global by global basis. So having to press Devastate baseline just to have a chance to reset Shield Slam feels very bland. I hope that sometime in the future they'll either bake the Devastator effect into Devastate, or they'll take Devastate away, or they'll make Devastate do something more on top of what it already does, since it's particularly boring to press. And I think maybe at the beginning of BFA, people were not playing Devastator because they just didn't have a lot of haste, a lot of ability to press. So likely we'll probably always be playing Devastator as long as Pro remains in the version that it is. Now, I did talk about bleeds, and if you look at opposite Devastator, we're gonna skip the parry chance because you know. And well, it's tank, guys. You don't really want to rely on RNG to survive, right? Parry's nice. The thing is, there are so many good talent points that you're likely not gonna take defensive reflexes almost ever, since there's so many amazing options. There are so many amazing options that you don't want to sacrifice to get this particular one. However, on the opposite side of the tree, you have Bloodborne and Blood Surge. Now, obviously, Bloodborne is very tied towards tuning because it's just more damage. It can be amazing damage, and Rend right now on Alpha does the most amount of damage for a Pro Warrior, which is kind of stupid, especially since we were doing dungeons and we're playing Blood and Thunder. So obviously Bloodborne works really well there to give you a massive amount of damage. Deep Wounds does a lot of damage as well. Thunderous Roar, which was in the general tree that I forgot to mention, and we can actually talk about it right now before we go forward. Thunderous Roar is an interesting concept. It feels like it's replacing Dragon Roar, but also having that bleed on top of it. It is very undertuned right now, and it's a strong competition with Spirit Bastion, and there's like no competition really. Spirit Bastion scales better off of attack power, does way more damage, generates rage, and of course unlocks Elysium Might, which is fucking bonkers, while Thunderous Roar is just slightly more damage. And I've talked about Fury and Arms, and that the Thunderous Roar in the tooltip doesn't seem to have an AoE cap, but it does feel like it has an AoE cap. I think we were playing Neltharis, no, Uldaman was Uldaman, and we pulled like a whole bunch of mobs all at once, and I just particularly waited to see until they all group up. I pressed Thunderous Roar, and I think I put the bleed up on about 5 to max 8 targets, I would imagine. So even though the tooltip doesn't say so, it definitely feels like it's not hitting everybody, and Thunderous Roar also has a pretty low AoE range around it that it affects. So it's a very underwhelming ability, which obviously takes away from the strength of Bloodborne. But if you do decide to pick the other one, which is Blood Surge, this is amazing. Now your bleeds will give you 5 rage when they tick. They have a chance to do that, and the proc chance apparently right now is 25% if we're going to take the data mind effect into consideration, which is still decent, especially in AoE when you're going to have at least 4 to 5 rends out. Obviously all at least the same amounts of deep wounds out. It's going to give you a lot of rage. It's a lot of rage, and it's actually really, really good. I think right now that Blood Surge has the potential to be way better than Bloodborne, specifically since Thunderous Roar is kind of dog shit. But if they do buff Bloodborne a little bit more, that would still be weird, because we're going back to a state where Warrior does a lot of bleed damage, and does more bleed damage than Feral. No, go away, Feral Cat. Go back to your talents. And if we keep going down the middle, you'll see Shield Wall with Anger Management just below it. Works the same as it does on live. You do have choice nodes on either side of Anger Management. On the left hand side, you have Enduring Defenses, which gives Shield Block 2-second extra duration, which as a protection warrior, especially in content that really hits you hard and a lot, unless you're like stupidly overpowered, Shield Block durations has always been one of the most overwhelming buffs that you can add to the kit, meaning that whenever you have to choose between Shield Block duration and something else, usually Shield Block duration always wins. I can see this being replaced with Sudden Death in raids, since depending on how you off-tank, you don't need that amount of shield block uptime, and depending on the mechanics, you can afford to maybe take Sudden Death for a little bit more single target damage. Maybe that's not a bad choice. Likely in tough content, you'll take shield block, and in, let's say, not so tough content, when you can afford to lose some defensive to deal damage, Sudden Death is good. So maybe this is a good choice node. I kind of like it. I don't know how optimized it is, but I guess we'll have to see, because on the opposite side, again, another questionable choice nodes is Unbreakable Will and The Wall, which are both legendaries for Shield Wall now in Shadowlands. The Wall clearly won on every aspect, no matter what you're doing against Unbreakable Will, since it just makes Shield Wall a better cooldown. The problem with Unbreakable Will is that it's very, very situational, and I've talked about this on stream because I know you guys asked me about it. The problem with Unbreakable Will is that once you have the option to shield your party, you have a choice. Do you use Shield Wall to protect yourself, to actually, you know, smooth out the damage that you take and maybe survive some tank mechanics, or do you use it to help your party, your raid, right? Obviously, it affects party. And it's a pretty good defensive for a party if you need it. However, if you do decide to put it for your party, that means you're losing defensive for yourself. And if you are using for yourself, then you're kind of wasting the effect and might as well just get Shield Wall. The only situations where your party actually really needs to survive a very damaging effect, and there's nobody else that can provide this assistance to your group. Normally, encounters are not designed in a way where tanks have to provide defensives for their parties, because if the encounters were designed that way, likely you'll probably only see Prot Warriors and maybe Blood Decays, right? I don't know if Prot Paladins can protect their parties overall with damage reduction, but Blood Decays have AMZ, and now Prot Warriors would have this. Then these would probably be the only tanks that you would take. So likely there's never going to be an encounter that's going to be designed purposely for tanks to provide damage reduction to their groups, meaning that Unbreakable Will fundamentally is kind of like a flawed concept. You have the option, if people fuck up, if you're in a PUG group, to take it and protect your party, but I digress. We'll see. It's specific to a specific situation, and we'll see if that ever comes to be played. Shield specialization is further down because we are seeing a return to, let's say, weapon type specialization, and the other specs have something akin to this as well. Shield block is increased, your block value is increased, blah blah blah. You'll have to take this no matter what, unless you want to path towards the middle from the sides, but you will have to take this because you do want Indomitable, which is just below this, and it's always good. It's a 10% extra HP, and you know, you heal for every 10 rage that you spend by 1% of your total HP. Never Surrender has been redesigned, and it's poop. It's poop. It's poop than before. And although at first glance it looks particularly good because you get more block chance, getting 20% more block chance when you're low, depending on the HP amounts, it doesn't really help. Because when you're that low, you cannot really rely on RNG proc chance to survive. That's not how tanks work. Look at Will of the Necropolis for Blood Decay, where you just have flat damage reduction, or, you know, damage absorption rather, which is very good, but that's not RNG based. That happens all the time. This is RNG based, whether or not you block. Not to mention that when you're low, you're probably gonna press shield block anyway, which gives you 100% block uptime, meaning that Never Surrender is not going to work. And if you do take Never Surrender and you do say, maybe I don't care about the RNG proc, you lose Indomitable for every other situation, since Never Surrender doesn't really work unless you dip below really low HP. And you do lose Indomitable, the talent, which is much better damage smoothing with the heal and the extra HP. On the left hand side, you'll see Outburst R2 set piece, which is fucking amazing. This has been so fun to play with in Season 3 and now in Season 4 as Protection Warrior. I'm glad it's back. It's pretty much the same. 30 Rage Consume gains a stacks of Seeing Red, and at 8 stacks you gain 1 stack of Outburst, which obviously, you know, transforms that into Outburst, making your next Shield Slam and Thunderclap be 200% more effective, which has been really good for your rage management and for damage output. It's pretty cool. Opposite to it, you'll have Spell Block, which is again fucking amazing for 2 minutes. No, for 14 seconds. Every 2 minutes you can block all of the spells that you take. And you'll think, yay, Prot Paladin can do the same, but Warrior's better at blocking overall. Obviously, this is a cooldown. It's not passive like Holy Shield like you have for Prot Paladins, but tanks don't get pelted by magic bolts consistently for the entirety of the fight. That's not usually how encounters are designed, because tanks are supposed to take more magic damage, so you're not gonna make a tank have to be able to block spells, because otherwise, you know, once again we go back to the legendary Unbreakable Will effect that we have in the talent above, where you're forcing tanks to have a certain utility kit to deal with an encounter that only 1 or 2 tanks have that possibility to do so. So that's like not gonna happen. But it is a good buff, and it's probably going to be used a lot, both in Raids and in Mythic Plus, and I can see encounters. Think of Halls of Atonement right now, where you make the first pool and you have about 4 to 6 casters and they're all casting Wicked Bolts on you, or the other side with the packs just before Ardent World and Mecha Gun and stuff like that, where everybody's just casting massive bolts at you. This is amazing. 14 seconds is a long time to block spells. So I'm happy. And we are killing it off with Battle Scarred Veteran, which is a cheat death-like mechanic. When you drop below 35% HP, you take 100% less damage and are healed by 100% more. This doesn't seem to indicate from the tooltip how it actually, how long it actually lasts for. I doubt it lasts for until you go over 35% HP, but it is on a 1-minute cooldown, so it's very strong. I don't know if the tooltip basically says that it's acting in the way that it should, so we'll have to see how this essentially is tuned in alpha. It can become a really good point. Right now we couldn't even test it since Pro Warrior doesn't really dip in HP. I could force myself to dip, but then that would be an unrealistic situation since you don't want to dip in HP anyway, so the value of this is hard to test at the moment. Hopefully later into the beta maybe we can test it more. And on the right hand side you'll have a couple of really good points and not as many to take overall. Last Stand is obviously good. Unnerving Focus rather is amazing. This has been one way that Prot Warrior has been generating massive amounts of rage, which kind of turns Last Stand into a DPS cooldown. So the rage gain is so good that maybe you just don't care. It's 30% extra HP, but it is 60% more rage, so I don't know. Brace for Impact is just more block damage and more block and damage. That's pretty good. Fueled by Violence is a poop talent. I don't know why it's there. It's a capstone as well that you have to take to go down. Spiked Shield is really good right now. 20% attack power. when you block, that is a lot of damage for passive. That's very free damage. I don't know if it's gonna stay in that iteration. If it does, holy fucking Christ. Imagine, because you're pressing shield block and you're blocking all of the attacks. 20% attack power per attack. If you're thinking about Mythic Plus, let's say you have 5 mobs attacking you, every auto that they do, like, you put out 100% of your attack power out in damage. That is very, very nuts. Bolster's coming back, where last stand's cooldown is reduced by 10 seconds. I don't know what that means, because last stand is 2 minutes. I don't understand what those 10 seconds are supposed to represent. I don't know if they mean 10 seconds or 30 seconds, or last stand is supposed to be 3 minutes and its bolster reduces cooldown again by 1 minute. I don't understand what those 10 seconds are about, but obviously it gives you the shield block effect for its duration, again working amazing with spiked shield. On the right hand side of these, you have a choice nodes of 2 very dog shit talents. Brutal Vitality is dog shit, and Improved Heroic Throw is also dog shit, because what, you're just applying deep wounds? That is not enough. Deep wounds don't do that much damage, and I don't know if you want deep wounds to do enough damage where Heroic Throw would be something to take. Obviously it helps with range pool, but that's one talent point that there's so much value to be found elsewhere than putting in any of these two. And obviously, let's not go again into Ignore Pain and how much overvalued Ignore Pain seems to be by everybody. Listen, guys, Ignore Pain is okay, but it's dog shit. It's not a mitigation. It just smoothens out the damage. Okay, it's not Celestial Brew. It's not Death Strike. It's not Soul Cleave, or it's nothing like that, right? It's just poop. It's poop. It costs a lot, and it doesn't absorb as much damage as it should for its rage cost. Further down, you have Punish versus Juggernaut. Well, Punish has always been in a tree, opposite this time around with Devastate, and has never been taken, and now it's opposite Juggernaut, which I don't know which is more competitive. Probably Devastator is more competitive, but Juggernaut is also really good, considering that arms protection right now is one of the tanks with the highest single target damage in Shadowlands on Execute, and likely when the tuning numbers are gonna hit Alpha and Beta supposedly soon, the numbers are obviously going to scale down for protection because it just slaps way too hard right now, and likely Execute damage is still going to be pretty high for protection if it's going to kind of correlate with what we have right now in Shadowlands. So Juggernaut is probably going to be what you will take. Focus Vigor is a stat point that's particularly strong compared to other potential stat points. Strength and armor increased by 5%, your crit chance increased by 2%. That is very strong. And we go down to Ravager, where you finally have Ravager, but even with the capstone that's underneath it, that increases its duration by 2, which is a very weak capstone, a very, very bad capstone, bad. I don't know. If this offered some form of parry that I think Ravager used to have back in the day, or more rage gain, or more damage, or a cooldown reduction of some sort, maybe, but Storm of Steel is just very bad and very lazy design. I don't know. It's no competition. And I think we've overlooked one important thing that I don't know if we've had before, but it's coming back in a different kind of iteration, and that's Shield Charge, which is all the way on the left-hand side of the talent tree, which is a set that I've been having a lot of fun with, I'm not gonna lie. It's a 45-second cooldown. You charge at the target, stunning them for 4 seconds. You deal a lot of physical damage and AoE damage around the target. It scales off of attack power. The initial hit hits for 200% attack power, single target, which is amazing, and 50% for every other enemy in 10 yards, and you stun your main target and generate 20 rage. And underneath it you have Champion's Bulwark, which is kind of a budget revenge, where after you shield charge you gain shield block for its normal shield block duration, so it's not a reduced shield block duration. You also get the free revenge proc, and it generates an additional I think it's 50% rage. I think from the baseline 20 rage, it generates about 45 rage, I believe. The tooltip says 300 rage. Obviously, it doesn't generate 300 extra rage, but it does generate way more rage. It's a great way to go into a big pack in a dungeon. It's still a talent that takes you away from other things, and since it's now reprisal where you can constantly rotate that shield block and revenge procs based off of charges and intervenes, I don't know what the utility of it is. I can see it offset a lot of issues that, you know, tanks had in Mythic Plus scenarios in the past, where you go in with no mitigations and no resources and you just get slapped in a few seconds. I can see that this is what they were looking to do with Shield Charge in a way, well, rather with Champion's Bulwark, but it's probably is pretty tanky. And I don't know if this is particularly needed. I guess we'll have to see. But this is the first impression of Protection Warrior. Man, this has been a blast. The talent tree is looking amazing. There are some weird nodes there, some kind of cookie cutter overpowered ones, which is a little bit sad because we're probably gonna end up playing one of the same builds constantly again and again and again, since some of them are just depressingly way more stronger than the others. So I hope this gets fixed. I know that Archie from Skyhold has made a very beefy post on the forums as a feedback for the talents, stating this exact same thing, that some of the talents seem so overwhelmingly strong that, and the positioning and the paths being so limited, being in the way that they are, that you're likely going to build some cool stuff, but you're probably gonna build most of the same stuff. So you're never not going to take stuff like Strategist or Devastator or Shield Wall or Anger Management or Spiked Shield or, you know, maybe Into the Fray or Heavy Repercussions. You'll never not take Outburst, clearly. You're never not gonna take Indomitable and stuff like that. So it's... some of them seem to be very strong, so strong that you're probably always going to take them, so that doesn't really give you much of a choice. We'll see if the devs listen to this feedback and adjust accordingly. But hope you enjoyed the video, hope you had fun, hope you're looking forward to Prot Warrior, because, man, I was thinking of maining Evoker, but the more Prot talents I see, the less likely that's going to be. Is that true for you? Well, if not, or if yes, you can still check our Patreon link down below if you want to support our content and you like to see more of what we do. And of course, for the existing patrons, thank you so much for being a part of our community, for making all of this possible, because WoW is looking good again. WoW is looking fun. Can I hope? Opium? Opium? But yeah, it's been fun. See you in the next one, everybody.
I've been loving it then, I still love it now. Still, I play WoW. Still, I play WoW. Getting better every day, let me show you how. Cause still, I play WoW. Still, I play WoW. It's getting harder to stay, but at the end of the day, it's a guilty pleasure, so just log in and play. Whether it's classic or retail, I'ma do a /bow. Still, I play WoW.